Robert Redford enthralled viewers for decades with his charisma, skill, and life that seemed destined for the movie theater. However, he concealed a very personal tale of love and heartache behind his well-known roles and red carpet appearances. Redford has kept quiet about the one woman who made a lasting impression on his heart, despite everything from a fast-paced Hollywood romance to intimate encounters that molded his spirit. So far, 88 years old, the renowned actor has finally shared details about his greatest love. Who was she? What was the reason behind his prolonged concealment of this secret? Robert Redford is one of the finest actors of all time, as you are undoubtedly aware. Whether it was the endearing protagonist in The Way We Were with Barbra Streisand or the golden-haired man whose smile lit up the screen in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. However, Robert was just a typical child growing up in a working-class household in Santa Monica, California, long before Hollywood got its hands on him. His mom ran the household, his dad worked as an accountant, and they led a simple existence in Van Nuys. It wasn't the kind of beginning one would anticipate for someone who would someday be mingling with the world's most famous people. Robert was unique from an early age. More than school, he enjoyed the outdoors, athletics, and the arts. He described his inability to concentrate in class as a bad student, but boy, could he concentrate when he was playing tennis or holding a paintbrush. At the Los Angeles Tennis Club, he even had the opportunity to warm up tennis great Pancho Gonzalez. Is it possible? But he struggled and school wasn't his thing. Things went south when he arrived at the University of Colorado. After he began drinking excessively, he lost his scholarship and was expelled. He might have ended his story there. But it was only the beginning for Robert. He then wandered about Europe, experiencing life in France, Spain, and Italy. He led a simple life, making sketches, painting, and determining his goals. This was the period when the germ of acting was sown. He was eager to try something different by the time he got back to the United States. After relocating to New York, he attended the Pratt Institute to study painting before trying his hand at acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. He didn't get any huge breaks or success right immediately, but he persevered and took on little jobs on TV and stage. Let me now share with you the love story that greatly influenced Robert's life. He first encountered Lola Van Wagenen in the late 1950s. Calm, centered, and firmly entrenched in her Mormon faith, she was everything Robert wasn't. She was from Provo, Utah, which was very different from Robert's childhood in California. Nevertheless, they clicked. He recognized something in her, and she recognized something in him. Despite her parents' wishes, they eloped in 1958 because they were so in love. Consider it. A couple who are barely older than children are rushing to get married because they can't bear to be apart. It's what romance books are about. But initially, they had a difficult time. Robert was struggling financially and was still striving to succeed as an actor. They made do with whatever work he could get and lived in cramped apartments. Then disaster hit. Scott, their firstborn child, passed away from SIDS. Although it was heartbreaking and the kind of loss that could shatter anyone, in some ways it strengthened their bond. Robert found solace in Lola's resilience throughout that period. You can understand why he eventually declared her to be the love of his life. Despite heartache and uncertainty, she never wavered in her belief that he would succeed. It became busier and more complex as Robert's career took off. He played a newlywed opposite Elizabeth Ashley in the Broadway production of Barefoot in the Park in 1963, which was his breakthrough performance. He was well received by audiences, and Hollywood began to take notice. Before securing his first major film parts, he quickly appeared on television series like Perry Mason and The Twilight Zone. He was a major cinema star by the late 1960s. He most likely appeared with Paul Newman in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The film was a huge hit, and they had a great relationship. Robert was suddenly more than just an actor. He was well known and a heartthrob. But doesn't celebrity have a price? Robert was constantly working, frequently spending months on the job site. Lola was raising their 3 kids, Shauna, David, and Amy, at home in the meantime. Their relationship began to suffer as a result of the strain of juggling his rapidly expanding work and family obligations. In subsequent years, Robert has said that he wishes he had prioritized his family more frequently. He was determined, ambitious, and perhaps a bit overly preoccupied with establishing his reputation. However, it was difficult to imagine another route in those days. Despite the difficulties in their marriage, they had some wonderful times together. Lola was more than just his spouse. She served as both his confidant and sounding board. She was in favor of his idea to launch the Sundance Film Festival, which revolutionized the field for independent filmmakers. For Robert, it was a passion project that embodied his conviction that taking chances and promoting up-and-coming filmmakers are important. Who knows if Sundance would have ever occurred if Lola hadn't encouraged him? However, by the middle of the 1980s, their relationship's flaws were too evident to overlook. After 27 years of marriage, they made the decision to get a divorce in 1985. The breakup wasn't acrimonious. They continued to co-parent their children and stayed friends. Nevertheless, an era came to an end. The fact that Robert went on to call Lola the love of his life says a lot about how deeply they were bonded. She made a lasting impression on him, despite the fact that they were unable to maintain their marriage. Both personally and professionally, Robert's life changed significantly once he and Lola split up. Without a doubt, it was difficult to lose the solid foundation of his marriage. Robert, meanwhile, was unfazed by the heartbreak. Robert first met Sonia Braga, the fiery Brazilian actress famous for her daring roles and lively attitude, in 1987, shortly after his divorce. Their courtship was electrifying, and the two clicked right away. Sonia had more than simply beauty. She exuded a fervor that seemed to be equal to Robert's own. Despite spending less than a year together, their time together was everything but typical. Robert was occupied with marketing the Milagro Beanfield War, a movie he directed that examined a small New Mexico town's battles against avaricious developers. Despite its lackluster box office performance, the film was full of heart and purpose, two qualities that Robert held in high regard. The time spent with Sonia was a blur, brimming with vibrant moments and common interests. Together, they even walked the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival. But as brilliant as they were, their romance ended just as fast. They had parted ways by the year 1988. While filming Havana in 1990, a few years later, Robert's life took yet another unforeseen turn. Lena Olin comes in. A gorgeous Swedish actress with a captivating charm and piercing gaze. Their chemistry extended beyond the screen. It overflowed into actual life. As you watched their sequences together, you could sense the attraction and spark between the two individuals who were unable to ignore what was going on. Additionally, you may have observed that their kiss wasn't for the cameras if you were at the movie's premiere. That one was authentic. Although their romance lasted only a year or so, it had an impact. There was more to Lena and Robert's relationship than just love. They exchanged vulnerable and creative moments. Robert was still making audacious professional decisions at this time. Havana, which felt very multi-layered and political, was set against the backdrop of Cuba during the revolution. Robert flourished on complex narratives, and he devoted the same amount of energy to his relationship with Lena. It wasn't meant to endure, though, like a lot other Hollywood loves. Although they had split up by 1991, their time together had given Robert's life and love story a new chapter. By the mid-1990s, Robert was once again proving to the world that growing older did not imply slowing down. He co-starred with Michelle Pfeiffer in the romance drama Up Close and Personal, which left viewers in awe. The film was a love, mentorship, and ambition story of a seasoned journalist falling in love with a young TV anchor. That Robert was still portraying romantic leads at the age of 58 is hardly surprising. He made it look easy with his trademark charm and tough good looks. Off-screen, however, his romantic life kept changing. Kathy O'Rear, a costume designer who was over 20 years his junior, was associated with Robert at this period. Perhaps Robert was drawn to Kathy because she was not in the spotlight in Hollywood. She provided steadiness in the middle of his career's turbulence and was creative and grounded. Their relationship wasn't featured on magazine covers or in tabloids. It was secluded, quiet, and just what Robert needed for a time. Robert was more than just an actor throughout these years. In addition to producing and directing, he was still influencing the motion picture business. In 1998, he made a very personal follow-up with the intensely moving The Horse Whisperer. He not only directed the film but also starred in it as a man who helps a family heal its own scars by healing broken horses. The commercial success of the picture demonstrated Robert's ability to enthrall viewers both in front of and behind the camera. Robert was more than simply a Hollywood celebrity by this point. A storyteller who didn't hesitate to take chances or engage in worthwhile endeavors, he was a cultural figure. His commitment to independent cinema through the Sundance Film Festival was revolutionizing the industry by providing a stage for filmmakers whose work might not otherwise be seen. It is understandable why he was revered for both his vision and his talent. However, Robert's life demonstrates that juggling work and love isn't always simple. Whether he was with Sonia, Lena, or Kathy, his relationships represented distinct phases of his life. In the same way that his films showed many facets of himself, each woman added something special to his life. Even Jane Fonda, his longtime friend and co-star, found herself thinking back on their relationship over the years. At one point, Jane acknowledged that she had fallen in love with Robert while they were working together on movies like The Electric Horseman and Barefoot in the Park. She claimed that although he was not always the most agreeable to work with, he frequently arrived late or in a foul mood, there was something about him that drew her in. Although it never became romantic, their decades-long business collaboration gave Robert's story more depth. Proceeded to broaden his career outside of the movie industry as the 2000s drew near. In addition to working on environmental projects and directing the iconic Bagger Vance, he also dabbled in creating socially conscious movies like The Motorcycle Diaries. A guy of many passions, he never stopped moving forward and changing. You begin to notice a pattern as you reflect on these interactions and occasions. Robert didn't hesitate to take chances, either at work or in love. He lived life to the fullest, whether it was pursuing a romantic relationship with Sonia, establishing a bond with Lena, or seeking solace in Kathy's companionship. Just as every movie added a new dimension to his legacy, every lady became a part of his story. When Robert Redford met the gifted artist and environmentalist Sybil Sagers, his life took yet another lovely turn. It wasn't a Hollywood tale when they met. It was straightforward, sincere, and contrasted with his Sundance Mountain Resort's breathtaking natural surroundings. Sybil had arrived in the late 1990s with little knowledge of Robert's notoriety. What if someone met him without initially recognizing him as a movie star? After spending so much of his life in the spotlight, Robert must have found that invigorating. He didn't mention them at all, but she subsequently acknowledged that she had rented a number of his films to catch up before their first supper. It wasn't about movies or celebrity when they first met. It was about a connection between two individuals. Robert once claimed that the relationship felt more genuine and human because she didn't know him as an actor. That relationship grew stronger over time. Additionally, they were married in a secret ceremony in her birthplace of Hamburg, Germany, in 2009. As an artist, Sybil's work expresses her enthusiasm for environmental issues and her love of the natural world. She makes drawings, paintings, and even earth-themed performance art, while bringing attention to the necessity of its protection. Working together as campaigners, Robert and Sybil became a formidable team. They even co-founded a charity organization called The Way of the Rain, where Robert's stories and Sybil's artwork were used to support environmental conservation. You can see how their mutual love of the environment drew them closer together. Robert once claimed that Sybil gave him a whole new life. Robert's affection for his children and grandkids remained unwavering, even when Sybil played a significant role in his final years. Scott, Shauna, James, and Amy are his 4 children with his first wife, Lola Van Wagenen. Robert was forever changed by the tragic loss of Scott, who died of SIDS at the age of 2 months. He has stated in interviews that the anguish of losing Scott never really subsided. It molded him. And it might have broadened his perspective on family and life. James Redford, his second son, closely followed in his father's footsteps. James was a remarkable filmmaker and environmentalist who raised awareness of significant issues via narrative. After undergoing 2 liver transplants himself, he made documentaries and worked on projects that brought attention to the critical need for organ and tissue donation. The Redford Center was co-founded by Robert and James, a non-profit dedicated to making movies that motivate people to take action for the environment. For Robert, losing James to liver cancer in 2020 was yet another devastating event. He characterized James as optimistic and constantly committed to improving the world. In addition to being a father and an inspiration to those who knew him, James left behind a legacy as a filmmaker. Robert was deeply grieving for James. However, he was also proud of what his son had achieved in his lifetime. Shauna and Amy, Robert's 2 daughters, continued his artistic endeavors. Born in 1960, Shauna went on to pursue her artistic career. Her career and family life exhibit the same quiet fortitude her father has always respected, despite her low profile. After becoming married to author Eric Schlosser, she brought up 2 kids, Micah and Connor, who are now on their own. Another creative force is Amy, the youngest of the Redford siblings. As a filmmaker, producer, and director, she combines her personal vision with her father's narrative abilities. While raising 3 girls, Amy has directed short films, music videos, and feature films. Her art represents her conviction that women's voices should be heard and that mothers should face the difficulties of motherhood head-on with courage and ingenuity. Her ability to passionately balance her profession and family is a clear testament to Robert's impact. The grandchildren are another. Robert, who now has 7, has enjoyed seeing the following generation develop. For example, his grandson Dylan has taken up the family's filming tradition and even persuaded Robert to provide the voice of Omniboat, a fast boat fantasy. Can you imagine a dolphin being voiced by Robert Redford? It demonstrates that he still has a sense of humor and is prepared to encourage his family's artistic pursuits. As his family expanded and changed, Robert continued to work. He played some of the most intriguing parts of his career in the 2010 S. He portrayed a man abandoned at sea in the nearly dialogue-free movie All Is Lost. Only he, the sea, and the survival tale remained. It was regarded as one of his best performances in his later career by critics. Then, in Marvel's Captain America: The Winter Soldier, he took an unexpected turn as the antagonist Alexander Pierce. In contrast to the good guy parts he performed in his early career, fans adored seeing him as the brain behind Hydra. After playing a charming bank robber in The Old Man and the Gun, which seemed to be a throwback to his early parts in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Robert declared his retirement from acting in 2018. With humor, adventure, and a hint of nostalgia, it was the ideal way to end his illustrious acting career. However, Robert later said, "You never know," acknowledging that he regretted declaring his retirement. He demonstrated that he still had a bit more to offer when he made a brief cameo as Alexander Pierce in Avengers Endgame. Whether he is producing, directing, or acting, Robert's passion for telling stories has never wavered. Millions have been challenged, motivated, and amused by the parts he has played throughout his career. Additionally, he continues to narrate stories in his own life. His activism, relationships, and work with his kids all demonstrate a man who has lived life to the fullest and with passion. With Siebel by his side now, Robert is committed to his core values of family, art, and the environment. He once remarked that regardless of age, life is about developing and learning. You can't help but feel impressed when you consider what he has accomplished and the lives he has impacted. Robert Redford is more than simply a legendary figure in Hollywood. As a father, grandfather, and artist, he has never wavered in his belief in the transformative potential of tales. That is Robert Redford's story, a life filled with love, grief, and an unwavering will to change the world. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you like this tour through his amazing life. Additionally, please write a comment below. Which Robert Redford character or memory is your favorite? We would be delighted to hear from you. We appreciate your time and hope to see you at the next one.